So I randomly picked out what I'm going to be drawing next. The first one came out as Daredevil, and the second one, which is the theme, came out as technology. Ayo, I'm tired of this technology. So I'm going to be combining Daredevil with technology and giving you guys a scale of 1 to 10 in the end of the video, 1 being easy, 10 being really difficult, of making this illustration. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So when it came down to drawing Daredevil, these are the references that I used in drawing this illustration. When it comes down to Daredevil, the tricky part was to combine technology with Daredevil. Here are the references that I looked at when it came down to technology. I was looking at Cyberpunk 2077. I'm a huge fan of the Netflix animated series that came out with that. I wish that they actually continued, but suffice to say, it's still great. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. So I came up with the idea of combining it with technology, where he has a visor similar to Apple Vision Pro, where he's able to see in a heightened frequency with his superpowers, and adding it onto the technology of seeing people's heart rate. And also, not gonna lie, I do like drawing frequencies, so that's another added touch to it as well. Ayo, I'm tired of this technology. Another thing too that I was looking at with the AI humanoid, I really like the way the side view has all of those wires on the back of his head and how it kind of courts with the same motion of his skull, so it has the same type of form pattern that's happening in there with the humanoid robot look. So I decided to implement those element wires onto Daredevil as well. Can't forget about those traps, because having big traps actually make you look more manly, so I implemented that onto Daredevil. Speaking of the devil, I gave him horns. Now the horns, I didn't want to make a replica of how he actually looks in the comic books, so I did my own type of version. I was looking at the side view of the Apple Vision Pro, and I kind of just went with that sleek curvature of that into a horn. So once the sketch is complete, this is when I transfer the files from Adobe Photoshop to Adobe Illustrator. And with Illustrator, this is when I'm utilizing the pen tool. The only part that was a little tedious was the wiring on his helmet, as well as just making sure the shadows of his muscles work coherently. I'm not a big fan of drawing hands, but I have to implement that because you have to showcase his weapon. I was gonna put 2 of his batons, but I figured 1 is enough, especially the fact that there's foreshortening, where the hand is closer to the viewpoint of the viewer watching it compared to the far away of his arm in the background. Instead of adding extra lines to his stubble, I decided just to give it its own shape by creating a shadow. So he has a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. And the batons, I decided to give it more earth tone colors instead of having it red, because I was going back and forth. At first I was gonna make it red, then I was gonna make it black, and then I was like, you know what, why not make it brown? That way the batons could pop out more, because if it's red on red, then it's just gonna make the whole illustration flat. So I added reflective light. So you will see that I was going back and forth. I was gonna make it green, then I made it blue, then I made it red. So then I went back to old school, and I was like, you know what, since it's based on a comic book, I went comic book neon, which I used the eyedropper of the Cyberpunk 2077 image. And then with the projectile that you're seeing there, I actually used a Gaussian blur drop shadow, so that way it could look more vibrant. So once the colors are complete, this is when I transfer the files from Illustrator to Adobe Premiere. And from Adobe Premiere, this is when I added the background and added effects to the illustration. So I created this technology graphics on his shoulder just to implement more of the technology theme that's going on in this illustration. So with the lighting, I just kept it really simple, and since he has the yellow backlighting, I actually implemented that on the bottom right hand side, so that way it makes more sense towards the scenery of this illustration. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being really easy, 10 being really difficult, Daredevil with technology theme gets a 4 out of 10. This illustration in general took me 2 days to finish. Of course, there was a few things that I believe I made a mistake. My opinion, I feel like I made the head a little bit too big. Anatomy is never going to be perfect. I feel like the anatomy here is a little bit off, but I'm still happy with the way this came out. Let me know what you guys think down below. Throw your suggestions on characters that you guys want me to design in the future. I will take that into consideration. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey yo, I'm tired of this technology.